visual. I see it all.
Visual, someone who I've been connected with for a little bit of while now in the Web3 space, was blessed to be a guest on his podcast, and I'm excited to have him on tonight's show as we deep dive into the power of NFTs and Web3 in education. So Visual, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Awesome. So we like to start the conversation with a little bit of your journey up to Web3 and how you got into Web3. Now, I try to aspire to the short and sweet because we're going to dig into the rest of your story and journey as we have this conversation, but just something to give those listeners both live and those that listen on the replay, just like some insights into your journey as an educator and into the world of Web3.
Sure. Yeah, I'll just give you pretty much some quick bullet points to kind of go back to where I kind of started to where it got me to today in Web3. I'm an artist, have been an artist for about 20 plus years, releasing independent music, hip hop artist, rapper, writer, performer, producer. And, I've been doing that, like I said, 20 plus years independently, performed everywhere. And, locally, I'm from Chicago, through the Midwest, some of the South, East Coast, West Coast, and even in France. And that's taken me to a path where it led to a lot of other things like artist development, artist management, brand development for different artists and people in the music industry, being part of different productions as far as videos and events, to where I started producing my own events as well. And then from there, I got into education just naturally from all the skills that I pretty much obtained over the years. It took me into being an educator where I did a lot of community service in my city. And then I started doing a lot of after-school programs and teaching at different high schools throughout my city, and even doing some speaking at universities and different community centers on entrepreneurship, event production, hip-hop history, branding, marketing, and just giving everyone that I spoke with just kind of a different outlook on different career paths and things that they could do with the skills and creativity that they have outside of what they're, typically shown in a normal school setting. And from that, I guess it kind of just led me to Web3 naturally. I started discovering some things in, about 2015 or so on cryptocurrencies, when I kind of started doing some research and kind of figuring some things out. Didn't really start buying and investing into it until 2017. And then shortly after that, I started hearing about NFTs and wasn't really too interested in a sense. I was a little weary because I wasn't sure how it made sense to connect NFTs to cryptocurrency. But once I really started to figure it out sometime this past winter, like in November, is when it kind of really took off, and I just started realizing what it could do. And I started getting into NFTs, and just it's kind of been spiraling up ever since then, because it's taken me to where I am now, where I'm doing weekly spaces, hosting a podcast, hosting in real life events and workshops to educate people on Web3 and all the aspects of NFTs and how they could help not only collectors, but not only artists, but also the collectors. And here I am today.
I love it. I think there's so many cool connections between the journey that you share and my own journey as well, of being a creator, being someone that was really focused on that creative professional type pathway, and then looking at ways to give back, help people, just realize that there's avenues and opportunities that one doesn't realize, or that there's skills that if you take certain skills and put them together, there's a new pathway that can be formed. One of the things that for me has been really fulfilling, I realize now that I was always an educator at heart, but I never considered myself to be an educator early on. I didn't go to college to become a teacher. I was a designer. I have a fine art degree, background in marketing and branding and design. I just wanted to give back to the future designers of my industry. And teaching at Fashion Institute was really just a way to help them avoid mistakes and improve productivity and efficiency that I didn't have learning Adobe Photoshop in high school with no Google, with no YouTube. You had Photoshops for Dummies, and that was like really all you had. So seeing that journey of taking and applying those skills and experience that you have, and then supporting youth, supporting people, the gamut, elementary, middle, high school, all the way up to higher ed. And then similar with me and with NFTs, crypto, I've had kind of an up and down like many of us have had, and I really took Ethereum serious in 2016, 2017. Was listening to a lot of Gary Vee at the time. He was talking about Ethereum over and over again, interviewing people, but he was really the only one in the space. I don't know why I didn't listen to him when he said VFriends, but now I'm like, all right, maybe get on VFriends, 2.0. But one of the things that we can kind of explore tonight that I think will be really cool is, that non-traditional education pathway. I see in Web3, there is such a desire for people to help each other build skills, build knowledge, have that core skill set in Web3 that helps you research, make sense of, make decisions. And while we always say not financial advice, like we want everyone to win. Unfortunately, someone has to carry the bag sometimes. So building the skills, building the knowledge. So tell us a little bit about, because I'm really fascinated with the live workshops, mostly because I feel like this space of Web3 is so dynamically in real life and digitally connected. I think we're going to see that with some of the best metaverse stuff is going to be, XR, mixed reality, blended. The NFT events in real life are always just so energetic, so exciting. But let's hear a little bit about these workshops as you try to introduce to the normies, as we call them, the beauty and the power of NFTs.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, honestly, I think it might be one of the most exciting parts of everything that I'm doing, because it's pretty much where I feel I excel. I don't know. Naturally, I'm just good with people, man. I love people. I love learning from people. I love, I'm just a curious person at heart. So I love to hear their stories, see what they're doing, see what they're about, see, career paths they've chosen, the struggles that they've gotten over, things they're dealing with, whatever it may be. I'm just naturally attracted to people, and I like to have conversations. And, I think it's what really led me to educating. And Web3 being so new and so fascinating to me, I just want to give that to everybody, to be honest with you. Like, that's really my thing. I just see so much potential in it and so much greatness out of it, as long as we have as much control as we can take of it. It's obviously, it's got its corporate sprinkles through it already, and I see it potentially becoming something that can be out of our reach. But I think we're all early enough to where we could get as much control of it and get our grip on the parts that, we feel are most important to us, or at least a corner of those parts. And that's really why I do these in real life events, because, it's one thing to say, hey, let's get this NFT, and let's get this cryptocurrency and add it to our wallets and this, that, and the third. And to do that, via, let's say, like a Zoom or something like that, or any other, even these conversations like this on Twitter Spaces, they're amazing, they're great. But I just think when you take it to the people, when you're right there with them, man, it's just a whole other level. Like, nobody can really, you can't duplicate that. You can't duplicate it. And I think that's the best part about it. I just love working with people. I love teaching people. And I think something like this too, it's just not easy to explain all the time on a Twitter space. It's not easy to explain on a Zoom, even if you're sharing your screen and all those things. And when you're there in front of somebody and you're talking to them about NFTs and giving them some basics, and there's a couple slides here and there, and what I like to do is I like to get into the story of how I kind of got into NFTs. And then I even share some of my personal collection, and I tell them why I have them, and, what some utilities may be, and, why I chose, that certain project, or if I bought one on a secondary, why I picked this design or this look. And I like to share those stories, and I think it better explains to people why I'm excited about it, and sharing that enthusiasm with them, I think helps them understand it better. And it resonates with a lot of people. I've definitely realized that it resonates with so many people when I'm in front of them and I'm giving them these stories and this insight on why I'm part of this Web3 world. And like I said, when I'm able to explain how to set up a MetaMask to someone in person, I'm there with them on their phone, and or their laptop or tablet, whatever it is that they have with them. I just think it's so much better than me doing it anywhere else via Zoom or whatever it may be. Just that personal touch, it just changes everything.
I'm with you 100%. As long as they don't show you their seed phrase. But it's
Exactly.
right. It's really fun in real life. I mean, I've walked a number of people through the process from that fiat transfer from their bank account to the moment where they're buying their first NFT to the moment where they're getting, rugged for the first time, and that's like a rite of passage. Although we try to avoid it, but it's impossible to avoid it. The question is just like, how can we mitigate, the losses and enjoy the journey? But just the in real life piece for me, I think, we saw a lot of really significant challenges in education at large, especially traditional education, trying to engage and support and help people, help students move through challenging and complex information and keeping them engaged. I find in real life as an educator is always going to be a better, more fulfilling experience. But there's a certain like energy that you feed off of people when they're excited. And I was super blessed to present with some pretty awesome people at South by in March, and the room was packed. I really hadn't spoken in real life in probably 2 years at this point. Just a lot of Zoom. Even a Zoom keynote with 2,000 people in the quote unquote room. Like, I was sitting alone in my office. I was by myself. So that energy where people are just excited, they're joyful, they're curious, they're driven. So I think it's really cool that you are onboarding people and you're making it personal, and you are connecting people to really the future of the internet, but in a way that is it's more meaningful, maybe not as scalable as 100,000 people could watch a YouTube video, but they're not connecting to that story, to that journey, and really connecting to you as that person that's going to be that guide through this process. So I love that process just at large. I want to dig a little bit into the music. I don't know if you've dabbled or explored music focused NFTs much. I'm definitely a novice in it, but I just know that is a area that there have been some pretty notable moments. This Royal, music company that is super NFT focused, with the Nas album drop was like totally a crazy thing. But curious for those that are listening, just to give like kind of a precursor. So if you're new to NFTs, they're basically a digital token that authenticates and keeps track of not just who owns digital products, whether it's a JPEG, whether it's a video animation or a music file, but also tracks the trading and the sales of it, so that those that are the creators can forever receive royalty for the profit that people make off of the hard work that they do. So we've seen JPEGs, we've seen animations and video, we've seen photography and drawings, illustration. But music is really the least impacted space of creativity so far. So I don't mean to put you on the spot if you're like, no, yeah, but I'm curious about it. I know because you're deep in the music space that you might have something to share.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's definitely something I'm extremely excited about. And to be honest with you, it's kind of funny, but I have this process whenever I get into something, and it usually starts with being terrified. And that's kind of where I am right now with, well, I'm past that part actually with music, but I was definitely terrified to say, hey, I'm going to start putting out Web3 music. So I got over the terrified part like probably like a month or two ago. And then I got into like, all right, just stop being terrified. Like, what are you doing? You've been doing this your whole life. So now just go learn. And that's really where I'm at right now. I'm just learning, and I'm planning to put music out by May as NFTs. And what I've been doing is I've been learning about the different ways that I could put music out. And obviously, I want to take advantage of what Web3 is truly about, and that's being decentralized. So I want to put out music on a platform where I'm able to, have control of my contract and not have to do it on the secondary market. So that's definitely the main thing that I've been researching for. And, I found a few different places and different ways. Like there's a lot of things that I have to kind of do where, I might need to, mint here and put the music out on another platform and things like that. So I'm kind of still trying to figure all that out. And also what I've been doing too is just listening to a lot of spaces with artists that have already been putting music out on Web3. And one thing that really grabbed my attention that I think stood out to definitely resonated with me the most is that a lot of artists that have been putting music out on Web3 are artists that have had this music out, on Spotify, on YouTube, on iTunes, wherever else it may be. And, I've heard stories from like Natasha, who I'm sure everybody that's heard anything about music NFTs knows. And if you haven't, please look her up. She's amazing, and she's definitely a big mover in the Web3 music space. But she was saying that she had videos that were sitting on YouTube for like 4 years and nobody cared about. And then she puts them out as Web3 music, and, everybody gravitated to it. And, I think there's a few reasons for it. I think she's really momentum, and I think also the excitement of Web3 blends into that. And I think also the fact that, she's probably gained a lot of new fans, so I think Web3 has opened up that space to just being heard by new people. Like I've literally come across people that have known me, for the past few months via Web3, either because I've collected their NFTs, I've had them on my podcast, I've had them in a space, whatever it may be, or I met them in an event, and they had no idea that I make music because they just know me as, Visual who has a podcast, and Visual who does, Twitter spaces, and knows so-and-so, but they had no idea I had music out, and they started discovering it. And I've been talking to them the last few weeks, and they're excited about it. And I told them I'm going to put music out. So it's fun. It's fun. I'm really enjoying that process as well, kind of like gaining new fans and new attention on something that I've, been doing for 20 years. It's kind of interesting to me, but that's definitely been my process, and I would recommend for anybody that's getting into music NFTs, whether you're a collector or an artist, just, approach it the same way you would any NFT. Obviously do your own research, figure out what you're going to get into, and definitely use some examples. Like look at people that are doing it right now, pop into spaces and see what they're doing, or if they have music out already, like go see where it's at and how they might have minted it, and what platforms they're using to get it out there. Because that's really where we are right now with a lot of this stuff, is we're trying to figure out those processes and those steps. And that's definitely where I'm at, and I'm excited. Like I said, in May is definitely when I plan to drop some music, so I'm definitely looking forward to that.
That is awesome. Well, I look forward to keeping up with you on that launch, that drop, because I think that's going to be really great. The Royal reference that I had made earlier, I just pinned a tweet at the top. So they're kind of going the route of like tokenized visuals that connect to the music, but like Visual was sharing, it's the ability for you to truly own the music that you are buying, but to truly 100% support the artist that is that creator. And that's just a very different thing than we're seeing from what once was the record labels and those middle entities controlling, to say that Spotify, in YouTube and these and other type of streaming platforms, Apple Music, they did disrupt, but they just replaced. So an artist to get like 8 cents on a song being played, or things like that. It's just like these spaces need to be disrupted. And I think what's really important is that we need to understand the revolution of Web3 so that we can empower our students, that we can show our students that yes, now creators do have viable pathways to express their creativity, but to actually make a living off of it. Because just a few years ago, being a YouTuber kind of like was a little bit more acceptable, where it may be 5, 6, 7 years ago, like that's a joke. For a student at career day to be like, I'm going to be a YouTuber, they'd be laughed at, they'd be mocked, probably by a teacher, unfortunately. Now you see that that's viable, but the problem is that YouTube is the gatekeeper. They're the ones that are making the money. You are making barely any money on ads, and so the only way to really be viable is to go the product, advertisement, partnership route, and that always has a struggle. Besides just you want to create content, you want to create art, you want to create music, being able to see how the smart contract, how the blockchain is actually allowing us to focus on what's important, which is making great art and connecting with people and building that community around it, because all of the mechanics are basically running on autopilot if set up in the right way in the background. So I want to spend a little bit of time kind of breaking down the process of validating NFT projects, because for me, what I'm really fascinated with, besides for the art and besides for the incredible way to bring technical and arts focus in schools, I'm really fascinated with research. I put out a tweet a couple days ago. I'm not going to pin it because, like, whatever. If you found it, you found it. If not, go on my profile and go find it. I said I'm a professional internet searcher, and the context for that is if someone needed my help, they were struggling to find information, and I literally just Googled it. That's all I did, and I found exactly what they needed. But for some reason, they could not find it, and I realized the way that you think when you open up a Google search tab, and the words that you use, and the way that you're thinking about the information that you are trying to seek, comes up with very different results. And I don't know how I like built up the skill. It wasn't through a college course. It wasn't through some sort of a mentorship. I didn't get like Google search mentorship training. If anyone needs that, DM me. But it's like where? How do we get that? Well, it doesn't matter how we got it. We have it, and if we're aware of these types of skills that we have to package it in a way where we can help educators, we can help students directly to build these research skills where they can look at and evaluate and validate information on the internet, because this stuff moves fast. And if you're not being careful and you're being thoughtful and thinking for a second and not rushing and not feeling like there's something missing. I mean, even right now, before we get into this, I just want to share something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, which is when we talk about hot wallets and cold wallets. People are like, what are we talking about? You put your wallet on ice? Cold wallets are wallets that need to be plugged into the computer and connected to the internet, so they don't live online. A hot wallet, like your Coinbase wallet, your MetaMask wallet, your Rainbow wallet, these are hot wallets. They're connected to sites all the time. They're on your phone. And a lot of the scams that happen is when people connect to malicious sites, or they click links, or they're not reading, they're not paying attention. And I realized that it might make more sense for people that might not be ready for the cold wallet. I'll admit, I have a cold wallet. I'll admit it's a pain. I've missed out on certain things because I don't carry it around with me everywhere. And now I'm thinking, well, maybe I should. Because even if you get it lost or stolen, no one's getting into it. It has most of them have passwords to get into it, and whatever. I don't want to get into the whole details of that because I don't want to go on too big of a tangent. But I was thinking you should have two MetaMask wallets, and the amount of money it costs at low gas time to transfer from one MetaMask wallet, which you would call like your hot active wallet that you're connecting to send the NFT to that second MetaMask wallet that's kind of like cooler, not quite cold, but like not as hot, and swapping Ethereum back and forth. You think, oh, but all the fees. So losing like one Ethereum and 5 NFTs that are, let's say, worth like $10,000 because you didn't want to spend like a total of $20 or $30 in gas swapping these things back and forth. So you could have one wallet that like you don't care if it is getting hacked, because you never keep any valuable NFTs on it, and at most you have like maybe $100 worth of Ethereum, because you can never get all the Ethereum off of a wallet just because gas fees would like render the final transfer obsolete. So it's like you just swap and you just use it. So if that was like confusing and made no sense, it's okay. We're going to move forward. But if you are curious about that, DMs are open. That really only makes sense if you're like already kind of in this and you've got some, you got at least half an Ethereum that you're kind of messing around with, maybe a quarter of an Ethereum, and you've got maybe 5 or 6 NFTs that you've already purchased. You could DM me. But let's get into the process of like, what do you look for and how do you make sense of NFT projects right now? Because I feel like we're in a new phase right now in April that even in like January or February we weren't in. And certain things that people care about, certain things now that we're regular people are frustrated with. So let's kind of ping back and forth, but I feel like I've been talking too much and this is me interviewing you. So let's break down a little bit the process of, let's say maybe 2 or 3 things that you look for in a project to say that this is a project worth being a part of the community, worth investing in.
Yeah, definitely. So I just want to really quickly go back to what you mentioned about Google and searching, because I thought it was kind of interesting, because one thing I realized that has worked for me over the years when I'm searching on Google, if I can't find exactly what I am looking for, like if I just kind of change some words around or like maybe the way I phrase it, I end up getting what I want. And I think, I'm not sure if that's exactly what you were referencing to, but that just made so much sense to me when you said that, because that's literally what I'll do. Like I'll change some words around, add a couple words, or I'll add a name or something, whatever it may be, and it's like, boom, it's exactly what I was looking for, So that tinkering around, that really resonated with me. And it's kind of funny too, because that's kind of my process with NFTs, that I'm looking to get into. And honestly, my first step is I don't believe anything. I'm just honestly like, I love people. I love what their intentions truly are. But honestly, I'm just, my baseline, my foundation is I do not believe you. I do not believe anything you're telling me. I do not believe what you're trying to sell me. I do not believe what you're trying to, tell me is good for me, whatever it may be. And that's really my baseline. But at the same time, I also start everybody, if we were in a classroom, I would start you with an A. And it's up to you to maintain that A. Like, are you going to, do what you said you're going to do, or are you going to follow through on your promises? And that's really the way I kind of look at NFTs. Like, I'm not going to believe you, but I am going to start you with this A, and I just need you to make sure you're going to earn it. So I look at these projects, and the first thing that really gets my attention to me all the time is the art. Like, I can't help it. I'm just naturally a visual person, hence the name. And it just grabs my attention if I like the design. If you put eyes into any type of design that you're doing, like I'm 1,000%, I'm all for it. Like that's the first thing I'm gonna do. If I see some sort of eye in your design in any way, you got an eye on top of a monster, I don't care what it is, or your character has certain eyes, or 3 eyes, or only 1 eye, anything like that. I just love it. Like that's really what this thing does. Typically want to know about, like what's the roadmap, like who's on the team. I think that's extremely important to me is who's on the team. Like, why is this person on the team? Are they the artist? Like, is the artist even on the team, or is it just somebody that got hired from the outside that nobody will ever meet? That's something that's kind of important to me too, especially as an artist. It's not typically like a major problem to me if that artist isn't, really directly part of that team. But if, I see a project that brings that artist onto the space they're doing, or has an interview with them, or and somehow, is presenting them to the community, then I think that's great too. But I like artists to be part of NFT teams though, for sure. That's definitely something I look at. And also, as well as, everybody says it, and I think it's a major key too, is community. Like, what's the community like? What are people talking about? Are people really connecting? Are they really building something? Are they really trying to help each other out? Are they really forming relationships and doing things that people that aren't just interested in making a ton of money off a project doing? because that resonates with me a lot too. And I've noticed that with a couple projects that I've collected. I've noticed people in the community, like, just build projects together off just meeting each other in Discord or meeting each other on Twitter because they collected the same NFT, or they've helped each other in different ways. One's a developer, the other one's an artist, and he's like, hey, I could do this for you and you could do this for me. Things like that is what I personally love to see. If I'm able to kind of witness that, just from observing, that's a major key to me. Like, I just love seeing that because it's just so natural, and I believe it's truly what Web3 should be. I think those relationships should form off human connections that we're making, and when you're seeing one person is missing something and you have it, and being able to fill that gap is just amazing to me. It's like, at the end of the day, these projects, to me, they got to realize that they're like a puzzle. And if you have a piece and somebody else has a piece, and you're not willing to fill that puzzle together, then there's a major problem with that project. And I think that's something that really stands out to me too. And I see that a lot of times, where I see these projects that, they might have some good intentions, they might even have some amazing art, but at the end of the day, whether it's, for malicious reasons, or they simply just don't understand relationships, or community building, or human connection, whichever one of those things they're not understanding, it's just not clicking sometimes. And I think that that's a problem a lot of times as well. When I'm looking at projects, I try to stay away from those, because I don't know, maybe it's me, but I kind of tend to look at things that deeply. Maybe everybody does not, but I do. I can't help it. That's just naturally who I am. Like I said, I mean, my foundation is not believing anybody. So that's kind of why I really, look deeply into a lot of projects that I invest my time and money into. And it's just really important for me for all those elements to be there.
That's awesome. Really, really great insight. So for those that are listening, there's a culture element of the NFT space, and we're going to see that culture become so entrenched in the rest of our reality that if you're exploring, curious, wondering, even just hesitant but engaged with NFTs right now, we're so early, and you are going to be a part of something incredible. You have NFT projects that are collaborating with major businesses. Businesses are investing in them, both metaverse projects, NFT projects, DAO projects. You have major sports teams. Chicago Bulls, Sacramento Kings are two top of the mind right now that are collaborating with NFT projects. This is going to be a moment in time where we really understand, just like people are willing to pay millions, that was a bit, that escalated quickly, thousands of dollars on followers, whether they're real followers, the perception of followers, or actual followers. This idea, this coveted level of community that Web 2 has really been built on, that has value to people for some reason. But the idea that you could own like some digital object is like that's like where we draw the line. So I think it's really going to be interesting to see how the real world validates the digital. You have right now, three Bored Ape holders opened a hamburger joint called Bored and Hungry, and the line was around the block. Obviously, the opening, the place is totally crazy. It looks like a fun house with bored apes and mutant apes all over the place. And maybe it won't sustain. Maybe it's just hype for right now. But just the idea that you own the intellectual property of the NFTs that you buy, and the more exciting that brand NFT is in the world, the more opportunity you have to leverage your NFT in ways that could generate profit. The doodles, some of the doodles holders that have the coffee mug head are creating a coffee brand with their doodle NFTs. So there's just a lot of cool ways that these kinds of things can happen. But at the end of the day, you say it starts with art, and while people say utility, people say what, at the end of the day, you gotta love it, right? If it's a rock, the pet rock, if it's just something like very boring, very basic, but it has like some amazing utility, okay, there's always exceptions to the rules. But in general, you really need to appreciate the art. And I kind of go both ways on the artist versus the artist as a founder versus the artist as contracted. If the artist isn't publicly celebrated, that's where I take issue. If the artist isn't paid in a respectable way for their work, in some way where it's maybe it's a profit off of the mint, maybe it's profit off the mint plus some royalties, but there's also this thing, and I as an artist and a designer, I differentiate between the two. So an artist is someone that conceptualizes an idea and manifests it into the world in some sort of tangible form. A designer is someone that, and where I don't mean like designer in the sense of like what I just described, but more designer like they have the creative skill set, the technical ability to output creative work, but they don't have that vision. They don't have that imagination. So for us, for Ed3 educators, we have an incredible 3D designer. I mean, when she creates, it's absolutely magnificent. You can see, go to Ed3 educators. I got one of the tweets pinned up on this reel above. Go to Ed3 educators Twitter handle. Check out the site. Check out the NFTs. They're absolutely incredible. But Vridi Saraf, my co-founder, and Mike Peck is also down there as well in the crowd somewhere. I don't know what your order looks like, but he's on the second row for me. Like, we were part of guiding that. I did creative direction, Vridi did art direction, and we conceptualized, and she, the Sophia, the designer, she materialized it. But either way, she needs to be celebrated, she needs to be paid, and she needs to be part of this project moving forward. And I've seen so many examples in the NFT space, unfortunately, where people do not appreciate how powerful the art is, and they kind of like write it off, like, oh, we came up with the idea, we came up with the brand, we came up with the utility. But no, it's that art. And I think that Loser Club right now for me is a perfect example. That's the NFT that I have up right now. That is a project that I am so excited about for so many reasons, and some of them actually run contrary to some of the things I'll share in just a moment. But it's exciting because he was actually the artist in another project. I'm not going to name the project because that's not my style. You can do your own research and uncover it if you're really curious. But they kind of did him wrong. Then they made peace together, and in the end, that project's winning, and Javon and Loser Club are winning as well. But it's just this idea of not appreciating and respecting the artists as a core element of what makes this space so exciting and so like opportunistic as far as what is possible. So art for sure is a big thing. Utility is a funny thing because you kind of need the utility. You need something that this thing does if you're saying that this thing is worth thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars. And while utility is important, I look at the difference between product market fit is a word that we use in the startup world, where you are building something and you are trying to ensure that there's actually a community that needs this service, this product, so that the startup can be financially viable. So in the Web3, I call it product market promise, where you're like, yeah, we're going to build this like on-chain video game and this metaverse and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, how are you going to do that? And you find out that like their team, it doesn't have full-time on, core team members that have the experience in the background and building in 3D environments. Or I've heard crazy things like, our developers are all on our team based on a LOI, letter of intent, which is like not even a real contract, which is like not even a full contracted 1099 worker, let alone an employee. It's like ludicrous. So you have this utility that you're hoping for, but you really need to look at who the people are. So the days of an entire team being anonymous are done. You should never buy an NFT from any project where there is not a core element of the team. 100% docs. You can find their LinkedIn profile. You can find them on social media. You see their experience and their background, what they've done. If one person on the team needs to be anonymous because they will feel like they are in danger maybe their profession will go against them. Like the people in their profession, if they find out that this person is in this Web3 space, there's a lot of reasons to be, you might feel uncomfortable if people know your identity or your gender identity, whatever it is, that people might judge you and not focus on your art or focus on your contribution. Those kinds of examples, okay, so that makes sense. So that one person out of a team of like 3, 4, 5, 6, or 10, that one person can be anonymous, but what about the rest of the team? So Bored Apes got doxxed. I wasn't really thrilled with how that happened, but it happened, and now it's kind of like, okay, they're doxxed, so like no one needs to be anonymous. I think Betty is one example actually for Deadfall. It's a great example. So her and her husband are anonymous, but their COO that they just hired when they're like, hey, now it's time to behave like a real business since we're bringing in tens of millions of dollars and need to deliver. So their COO is not only doxxed, but is like a veteran COO per person. So it's like you got to look at these kinds of things where kind of the honeymoon is over a little bit in the NFT space of some of these things that were maybe flying, a year ago, 8 months ago, 6 months ago. They're just not flying. So you need to know who is promising that they're going to be creating a metaverse or some crazy project utility. But utility is pretty important. I don't really care about roadmap anymore because I just feel like that's like nonsense. I mean, even we created one just because like you're supposed to, but Loser Club doesn't have a roadmap. But you trust in the background of the founders and the creators and Javon the artist and the community. So community is really important, but the question is, what is the community? Is the community getting together to support each other and network, or are they just trying to figure out how they can increase their bag and sell for a profit? So these are like different things that I think we need to talk more about. We need to break down that process. I think it's kind of like level 2. Level 1 is like, look, let me help you understand NFTs and how to get your first NFT. But level 2 is really about like analyzing and being able to look at, from a business standpoint, these different these different projects. So we're going to segue to a couple different questions. But for those right now that are listening, if you are interested in sharing a thought or asking a question, please raise your hand and we will move through you. We're gonna run this till 10 o'clock, so we'll go for a couple more minutes and then maybe 10 minutes of Q&A. Hopefully some people raise your hand. Just remember, your question is not a dumb question. The only dumb questions are the ones not asked. Everyone has the same question. Everyone can learn from everybody. The only thing that I ask is the only person that gets to shill tonight is Visual, because he is the guest of honor. Anyone else, question on point or a comment about something we've discussed, but let's leave the shilling to a minimal. That's a general disclaimer that I always say, but please raise your hand. So 2 things that I want to dig into in the time that we have just one-on-one, or maybe we ride it out till 10 if no one wants to ask any questions. So first of all, my one question I ask every guest, because I'm just really always curious about, is what do you think the next exciting or the next big opportunity in Web3 is going to be from what you're seeing?
I think right now it's people discovering the fact that they could pretty much do anything that they want to do in Web3 instead of just NFTs as profile pictures and things like that I think a lot of people are seeing. Because everyone that I talk to about NFTs, if I even mention that word or they mention it to me and ask me anything, that's all they think about. They just think about JPEGs and profile pictures and all those weird little pictures that everybody uses, right? That's what they'll say to me. And I think it's kind of hilarious, but at the same time, when I tell people, like, listen, you write poetry, you can make a poetry NFT. And they're like, really? I could do that? And I'm like, yes. Or you're a filmmaker. Why don't you make a short film into an NFT? Or make clips of it and, spread it out into 3 pieces and have people purchase all 3 of them if they want the whole series. And when I start to give people ideas like that, that's when their mind just opens up and I see their eyes get big and they're just excited about it. And that's really what I think is next. People starting to realize, like, we had a panel at South by Southwest and we had, a pretty well-established photographer, Lindsay Burns, who she's also in the NFT space. She's part of the Wave Raps project. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that, but it's a pretty cool music and PFP project. and she shared a story on the panel on how, you know, she's been a photographer for you know, a long time, and you know, she's worked with some major brands and major artists. And she said when she first got into photography NFTs, what her approach was to start making these like weird little designs on her pictures, and she was just like kind of miserable. And then she said like after she started sharing it with people, they told her like, hey, why don't you just make your actual picture that you took of that artist performing on stage and put that out as an NFT, like as it is, as the great picture that it is. And then that's when she just kind of realized like, oh yeah, I could do that. You know, she was kind of overthinking it. And I think that's what a lot of us are doing, and a lot of people that are new to the space are doing. They're overthinking it. You know, the technical stuff, yes, I get it. Trust me, because that's the challenging part to me. But I think if you're a creative or you're anybody that wants to express themselves in any way, like I'm looking forward to seeing like dance NFTs. You know, like give me stuff that I know you're good at, that I know you do. Give me a cooking NFT. Like I want all of it. Give me all of that stuff. Like that's really what I want to see, and that's what I'm looking forward to. That's what I'm excited about. Everybody just pretty much shining at what they're great at, and using Web3 as that other vehicle that's going to allow them to either, you know, establish themselves as artists or to just take it to that next level. And I think that's something to really look forward to, because, you know, like we've said it many times just tonight, and I say it to people all the time, like we're early. We're just in these early stages where we're figuring things out, we're developing ideas, we're kind of getting comfortable with a lot of aspects of Web3. And that's really what I'm looking forward to, is just everybody just gaining that confidence to be able to jump in and say, hey, look, I'm good at this, and I want to, you know, go into Web3 and express myself as the dancer that I am, the cook that I am, the poet that I am, and just be able to see what they're able to do with it, because it's ultimately, you know, up to each individual what they want to do in Web3. And I think the restrictions are limited, and people don't realize that the restrictions are limited. The only real restrictions are what we put on ourselves. And like I said, if it's the technical stuff, I think that there's more and more resources as I search daily that I'm able to stumble upon, or places and companies and people that are forming, you know, new platforms that are going to make these things easier. So, you know, when I first jumped into Web3 in November of 2021, just a few months ago, like there wasn't as many resources as there are today. And that's crazy because it wasn't that long ago. It's just a few months. And things have already developed to the point where there's resources that make things easier for me as an artist to be able to put my art out there. Because I think a lot of the people that have been in the space have realized like, hey, it's not just about PFPs and pictures and you know, artwork that someone's drawing digitally or transferring to digital, but there's so many other ways that people are expressing themselves. And I think ultimately that's what's exciting to it, about it for me.
I love that. Yeah, I think the way that I was imagining as you were describing this progression of expression and connecting it to Web3 and to NFTs is sort of like the evolution of YouTube. The way that creators expanded the different type of content that not only could be created, but that could be consumed, and just really creative ways of looking at how, you know, how that experience is distributed. And you know, the other piece is just, you know, being open, being, you know, being willing to explore, and not letting the technical limitations overwhelm you. I mean, it is not simple, but there's definitely ways, like even minting, you know, minting an NFT. You can mint an NFT on OpenSea, on Polygon for free, just to experiment and see what it looks like. You know, Polygon's like pennies on the dollar. You know, not even pennies, it's like fractions of a penny, you know, 0.00000001 to transfer and move things around, just to, if that's the route that you're curious of taking, like that's there, and that opportunity is there. So for those that are listening right now, listening live, you know, you do have a chance to raise your hand and ask a question. I promise you these questions make the conversation even more awesome than it already is, and always is with the guests that I bring on. But no pressure, but it's always nice to hear from those live, kind of what's going on in your brain, or how to help us unpackage this a little bit for you. So we kind of talked about the future, this opportunity, this growth. I think another question that I'm always curious about is, how do you see this disrupting traditional education directly? I know that sometimes we like hyper focus on that on these weekly shows, but I go with the flow, and I go with like where we journey. But I always want to make sure to sort of tie that in. Is like where you see a seventh grader, an 11th grade student, like what opportunities do they have right now to get into this space besides for buying, a 1 ETH NFT, which is like, a crazy thing to even though I do it, it's like to say, it's like a crazy thing. So where do you see Siri's like trying to battle me here for airtime? So like what are your thoughts on that for students? I mean, I work right now predominantly with high school students, even some middle school students as well. But like, what do you see is kind of the opportunity for them to start exploring, so that they can take advantage of them being their age in this new internet renaissance where they're at, where we're all at right now?
I think it's huge. I think it's a huge opportunity for any young person to get involved. I don't know. I just feel like when you're at a young age and you're able to get into something like NFTs, Web3, and everything that's developing, everything that we're learning, and you're able to gravitate to that early on, like, it's just going to do so much for what you're going to try to do later on in life at such an early age. I met this kid who's 11 years old. He's from Thailand. His name is William Loopy. I had him on my podcast just a few weeks ago. We dropped the episode, and he's become somebody who I talk to often. He messages me all the time. We talk a lot. He asked me for some advice, and I met his dad, and it's we're building this really cool relationship. And this kid's he's amazing. I mean, he's amazing. He's a coder, he's a developer, and he's an artist. He created his own project, sold it out, and that's amazing to me. He's 11 years old, and he told me in the interview, he said, "You know what? I believe that you should be 10 years old and know what you're going to do with the rest of your life, instead of waiting until you're 20 or 30. And that was kind of mind-blowing to me, because I was not thinking like that at 10 years old. And of course, it's not for everybody, for different reasons, right? For different reasons. It might be your situation, where you're from, or just your ability to gravitate to something like technology and Web3 and things of that nature. But I feel like if you're the type of person that's into technology, you're into art, into anything that is part of what's going on in Web3, and you're young, I say jump on it. And I'm excited about continuing to present that to young people, because I think it's a major key. It's going to change a lot of people's lives that they wouldn't even imagine it was going to happen. Because like I said, when I talked to William, and to get that from him at 11 years old, it's phenomenal. I've honestly never met anybody at that age that talks the way he does and carries himself the way he does. And he talks to me sometimes about technical stuff like coding, and I have to stop him, and I have to say, William, I'm gonna be honest with you, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, I don't know anything about that. I don't know about Solidity, and I don't know about JavaScript. And he's like, he's so excited too. He's like so enthusiastic about it, and I love it. And I just, that passion, it resonates with me. But I stop him all the time, and I'm like, William, you're totally just over my head with this stuff. I don't know. And I just think it's amazing that he has that energy and those capabilities within him. And I think if you're young and you're able to do it, please do it. And that's why I'm definitely looking forward to continuing to push that on the young people, because I think it's an amazing opportunity.
I'm with you, and I love it. I interviewed a 12 and 16-year-old episode. It was with Young Crypto. He's 12 years old. And they're both like incredibly business savvy. But yeah, the idea of this 12-year-old is like contracting artists and technical talent and marketing agencies to help them build out their NFT project. It's something like I can't even wrap my head around how a 12-year-old could have this capacity. But that's definitely something that comes through mentorship. Like you don't just like wake up and you're 12 and you're like, a business maven. One of the things that I think is sorely lacking in education is giving young people exposure to professionals and their stories. I did that a number of times at the school in LA. I didn't get a chance to do it in Miami at the new school that I'm at, but I'm hoping to do it before the end of the year. Is bringing in different business professionals to tell their story, and I got this idea from actually a student years ago that was complaining that I'm always referencing podcasts, and I said, well, you should find a podcast that works for you that you can learn from. So, well, you already kind of know like what to be on the lookout for. We don't know. How do we know what skills to focus or what personalities or what conversations? And so I said, well, you should make a podcast interviewing people to answer that question. We ended up putting out, I think, like 8 or 9 episodes interviewing just wild people who, a lawyer who decides after 10 years in the field of law that they hate being a lawyer and ends up getting into marketing and then becomes at one point the senior vice president of mobile advertising for Apple. And just hearing their journey as they like piece together the skills and the processes as they went along the way to reach these new opportunities was like a totally mind-blowing kind of moment. So I think students need more interaction with professionals outside of the classroom that come in and just tell stories and tell their process and their journey. One of my former students from a couple years ago, who is now one of the biggest people I know in the NFT space, NFT Kings, he credits a lot of his decision making in business to he always gives my entrepreneurship class a shout out, which is kind of him, but I brought in professionals. So he was sitting with this venture capitalist that built a fund from $0 to $100 million fund, and showing that journey and the decisions that are made. So I think that we need to do more of that for young people, but also we need to show young people that now is the time to experiment and try this, whether you're technical, whether you're an artist, whether you're business inclined. I'm doing a couple kind of aspiring NFT projects with some high school students. One of them has a really strong artist on the team, and I figure even if none of these people that she is working with end up moving forward with this project, I just want to get her on super rare and she can just be a one-of-one digital artist, but celebrating her and her art and her creativity. And then we have another group that really is coming up with some pretty creative utility around their NFT project, but it's all the different skills of research and having conversations with people and finding different partnerships and how you're going to do marketing and community building and how you're going to create art, even if you are not an artist. What can you contribute to that? So there's a lot of ways that we can do this with students, but it's exciting always to hear those anomalies where it's if this can happen, how do we repackage that? How do we get more, young teens skill ready to explore the world of business? Because you don't have to wait anymore. You don't have to wait to get your business degree and graduate and get your first job and these things that the boomer generation had to do. So those are some of my thoughts. We're going to close out right now. No one raised their hand, but that's okay. Last kind of closing thought from you. Any parting words, insights, something where you were thinking and you didn't get a chance to share? And after that, please let people know, something exciting that you're working on, whether it's your in-person workshops or some of the other things that I posted to the top. Share some of that, and then we'll close out.
Yeah. So definitely, I just want to thank you once again, Michael, for having me on. Like I had mentioned in the first tweet when you tweeted out yesterday, your show was the first one that I really gravitated to when I got into the space, and I've been locked in pretty much to every episode. And I love these conversations. I appreciate you being part of everything in Web3. I think what you're doing is awesome. And I'm just looking forward to everything that comes from our talks and conversations that we have about Web3, man. And I'm here for you, anything that you need. And as far as anything that I'm working on, I mean, like I said, music in May is definitely going to happen 100%, kind of figuring out what I'm going to release. And currently right now, I just kind of have kind of like something that I kind of was unexpecting to release. But I have an NFT project that I'm going to drop probably next week, actually. If not, it'll be right at the end of the month. And it's pretty much like a travel NFT. Like I said, I didn't even think about doing this until it was kind of going on. But like I mentioned, I was at South by Southwest a few weeks ago. We did an event there. We had a panel discussion. I was hosting and moderating the panel, talking, and just having a good time with friends and hanging out, meeting people. And I kind of, have a journey, a journal of that travel time, through pictures and video. And I just decided to put it out as a NFT project. I thought it was something that was kind of interesting and unique and fun to do. So that's what I'm going to be doing. And like I said, it's probably going to come out. If not this week, it'll be right at the end of the month. And that's pretty much what I'm working on right now. Music coming out in May for sure. So definitely stay in tune with that. If you're not following me now, please do get in tune with me. If there's anything that I could help you out with, you're listening in. If you're curious about what else I might be working on, and also follow IC Web3. That's my marketing agency, and also what I use to brand a lot of the education and workshops that we're doing, within my city and outside. And we're just continuing to build with that. So, like I said, I'm always here just to connect with people and build new relationships and see whatever ways we might be able to help each other. So if you're listening in, please don't hesitate to DM me or at me, whatever it may be, whatever way you could get a hold of me. And I'm looking forward to building with you guys out there.
Amazing. Well, I want to thank you because I create these conversations to introduce awesome people to the community of educators and Web3 enthusiasts that I'm, blessed to be connected with here. So definitely everyone listening live and listening on the recording, make sure to follow Visual, follow the work that he's doing. He's doing some really exciting stuff. For those that are, connected to me, let's keep up to date on the different projects that we're working on right now. Ed3 Educators, we are ramping up for a May launch of that NFT project. Just trying to secure some different elements to make sure that it is the best quality, the best success, but the best for the community. So we're really excited for that. So make sure to follow Visual, follow myself, follow NFT Teaching Show, because that's where I share the archives and share different elements of the weekly conversation. Thank you so much, everybody, including those OG listeners that show up week in and week out. It's good to see some familiar faces showing up here regularly over the past couple of weeks. So I appreciate each and every one of you that comes live, and also those that listen on that record. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.